The Betrayed.
Welcome back to The Betrayed. I'm Gina Beck.
This is Drew Williams.
Thank you for listening, liking, commenting, and subscribing. We appreciate y'all, especially the reviews on Apple Podcasts. It really means a lot.
Yeah, and like always, thank you again for the continued support, the continued engagement, and that hashtag Banana Cats. Thank you guys.
How are you, Drew?
I'm good, G. How are you?
I'm doing good. Excited to jump into this podcast. While you guys are listening to this, I think I'll be in Vegas, right?
Yeah. I think that you'll be in Vegas by then. She's out traveling the world again, out on adventures.
Doing some photography, videography. It'll be a blast. I'm excited to tell you guys about it when I get back.
Yeah, I'm excited for you. You should have a blast. You're getting all over the West Coast again too, so.
So should I start or should you? I think we have a few things to talk about, but mostly this is a casual cast. We're just kind of winging it.
Remember that first one that you told me about, the one that was a little less controversial, the one about the purchasing stuff.
Oh, right. Yeah, well, it caught my eye because it's very interesting. It's good to see two worlds merge together. I feel like this is what this is about. The FBI paid a nonprofit organization focused on unmasking $250,000 for access to a series of hacking tools. According to public, records viewed by the motherboard, the news provides more insight into how the FBI obtains some of its hacking tools, or so-called network investigative techniques. NITs is what they call it. The contract also highlights the close relationship between private parties and the FBI when hacking suspects. Facebook, for example, previously bought a hacking tool for the FBI to use to unmask one of the social networks users who was aggressively on the platform, which is interesting to know that they use stuff like that. Well, the record says the FBI's Exploitation Operational Unit, CEOU, is purchasing a net of NITs. The contract dates from June 2020. The NITs have been demonstrated for OTD and CEOU, in which have the capability, if activated, of providing the true internet address of the subject. The product description continues referring to the Operational Technology Division, a part of the FBI that carries out hacking operations. Latter half of the product description is cut off, but reads in part of providing the true internet address of the subject, even when hidden. So presumably referring to whether the target is behind a proxy or some kind of network. And the nonprofit that the FBI paid for the NIT is called the Innocent Lives Foundation. Have you heard of them?
No, I haven't heard of that, but I'm definitely going to look a little more into that.
Right. We unmask anonymous characters to help bring them to justice. The organization website reads, we use open source intelligence gathering methods to identify characters. Once we have gathered the appropriate amount of information to confirm the identification of the predator, that file is then submitted to law enforcement. The ILF includes a board of directors, various corporate roles such as a chief operating officer, and a number of volunteers who are accepted by invitation only. The website reads, in 2019, hacking conference DerbyCon selected the ILF as one of the featured nonprofits of the conference and provided the charity with more than $25,800 in donations. U.S. law enforcement umbrella term of the network investigative technique has previously encompassed a wide range of different technologies and approaches in some investigations. NIT has referred to a booby-trapped Word document that, once opened, phoned home to an FBI controller server, revealing the person's IP address. At the higher end of the FBI has deployed non-public exploits that break through the security protections of the Tor browser. In a phone call with Motherboard, Chris Hangney, founder, executive director, and board member of the ILF, declined to specify what sort of tool the NITs were being used or developed. NIT itself or sourced them from another party. At one point, a company that sources zero-day exploits and then sells them to governments offered $80,000 for an attack targeting Firefox, which the Tor browser is based on. That company is very intelligent, and it later provided a Firefox exploit to an offensive customer. A law enforcement agency deployed it to visitors of a dark web site. I guess it's just something that has been used since 2015, and the FBI hacked over 80,000 computers in 120 countries based on one warrant alone. Some judges threw out evidence in certain cases, as they ruled the judge who signed the warrant did not have the authority to do so. But it has worked in many other cases, it's saying, and as well as recovering 351 children, according to a report from the Department of Justice office, which is great to hear.
I think I don't recognize the name, but I believe the people that we're talking about, they have to be involved with. Do you remember we talked about a link called app that was up for a few days, and you could go to it and it would track IP addresses of people downloading stuff from known dark web places for CP? They actually shut it down publicly about 3 or 4 days after we put that episode out, and they said they were starting to work with law enforcement. So I'm thinking I'm gonna have to dig into it. I bet you that's the same group of people, because that's what they were working on, was things that was tracking IPs, breaking down VPNs. When they say proxy, they're talking about VPNs. So that's really interesting. That's awesome. It's cool, like you said, the merging of two worlds is stuff that it's good to see, especially when you think of like channels like Mama Max, who is the other side of it, and like we the community needs more people like this, because the problem is here on the web, and we need people that understand this far more than most teams do.
Mama Max is exactly who I thought about when I saw this.
Yeah, he's amazing. I in my head, I hope that he listens. I don't know if he did more than the episode we talked about him, but I love him. This doesn't necessarily have to do with picking up IT equipment or new people to go after these guys, but this is a little concerning. This comes from a website called insightcrime.org. It was reported March 16th. Uruguay remains hub for trafficking women to Europe. And Uruguay is a South American country, the southeastern tip of South America, just above Argentina. A collaborative effort by authorities in Uruguay and Spain to dismantle an international trafficking network reveals that South American country remains a source of women trafficked to Europe. In late February, Uruguay's Ministry of Foreign Affairs announced that an Interpol operation had succeeded in dismantling a network that trafficked at least 29 women to Spain since 2017. The women reported being held captive, actually, according to Interpol. The operation involved 6 simultaneous raids across Uruguay and Spain, 3 taking place at residences in Montevideo, Uruguay's capital. The other raids took place in Spain, 2 in the city of Guadalajara and 1 in the estate in Alcalá de Henares. 8 people, 5 in Spain, 3 in Uruguay, have been arrested on charges of participating in a trafficking network. 4 were women, and 7 were of Uruguayan nationality. The women who were trafficked, authorities said, were coerced with false job opportunities in Spain. But once they arrived at the estate, they were forced into prostitution to pay off travel, room and board, and debts demanded by the traffickers. The tactic is a common trafficking method, the article goes on to say. While Uruguay has traditionally been praised for maintaining some of the region's lowest crime rates, it has failed to root out trafficking. Back in 2010, United Nations Representative Joy Goza Izelio warned that Uruguay had become an origin, transit, and destination country for human trafficking. The following year, in 2011, Uruguay issued a publication for all its embassies on how to detect and combat trafficking. While there have been some improvements over the past decade, continues to be a challenge for the country, as illustrated by the U.S. State Department's 2020 Trafficking in Person report. In its report, the U.S. State Department once again ranked Uruguay as a Tier 2 country, and I'll explain that here in just a second. Starting that while the government has demonstrated an effort to combat it still fails to meet the established minimum standards. Among the issues cited are failure by law enforcement to proactively identify inadequate victim services, and lack of comprehensive data. In regards to prosecution, the TIP report recognizes an increase in conviction rates of traffickers, something Uruguay was criticized for previous years. In 2019, Uruguayan government reported convicting 8 traffickers compared to none the previous year. Meanwhile, between 2014 and 2019, Uruguay only sentenced 5 people on trafficking charges, according to the U.S. Embassy at the capital. Prior to 2015, Uruguay was on TIP's Tier 2 watch list, on the brink of falling into the lowest category. According to Interpol, Uruguay's location on the Atlantic coast makes it particularly attractive to transnational criminal organizations looking to traffic people. Meanwhile, a 2020 report, Owners of People, People with Owners, published by El Paso, a Uruguayan non-government organization, indicated that structural inequalities and discrimination are also factors that make women in the country vulnerable to victimization. The El Paso report highlights that 17% of Uruguayan go abroad, primarily to Spain and Italy. Now, when they're talking about these Tier 2, Tier 3 countries, this is something that comes out of the Trafficking Victims Protection Act that was passed in 2020 in the UN. And a Tier 1 is a country whose government fully complies with the minimum standards. A Tier 2 is one that does not comply with all the minimum standards, but are making significant efforts to be in compliance with those standards. Then there's a Tier 2 watch list, which these countries whose government do not fully comply to the standards, but are making significant efforts to bring themselves to the Tier 2. And then there's Tier 3, which did basically no help from the government at all to combat it. So all these type of things goes back into your first article. They're using those same type of tools to track people, track the data. It's good to see that it's not just going on in the U.S. It's a worldwide effort, because it is a problem, and it's not always children. It's not always Epstein's Island. It's most of the time cartels push women. That's the sad reality, and most people don't seem to care.
Yeah, big facts, and it's scary. It's scary out there. I mean, you covered everything. I don't really even have to say anything when it comes to that. But what you said is a great segue into what I want to talk about, which is a bill imposing strict punishments for traffickers, and it passes Arizona House. It's on its way to the Senate, is what it says. It's a bill that comes on the heels of the campaign. We kind of spoke about it, I feel like, some episodes ago, but it now is the next step. Now is an update, right? So here it says that the hashtag that dominated much of social media last year, HB 2889, would create a no-nonsense approach to child crimes in Arizona. Right now in Arizona, a convicted child could face anywhere from 10 to 20 years in prison, and some have the option of probation. Well, 2889 gets rid of that. Well, they're wanting to get rid of that. Here it states, "You've ruined people's lives. There should be no getting out early for anything," says bill sponsor Rep. Leo, a Republican from Lake Havasu City. Someone convicted of producing or distributing 12 years of age or younger would serve life without parole, as well as someone convicted of trafficking. An exception would be instances of rape where an 18 or 19-year-old has someone under the age of consent. If the bill becomes law, Rep. Leo says Arizona will have some of the strictest offender laws in the country. The bill passed the House 51-1, with the Rep. Pamela Powers Austin being the lone opposing lawmaker. Justice is not blind or colorblind in the United States, and so mandatory sentencing is a part of the problem. If we had a fairer justice system, then the population in prison would look more like the population of the country, and that's not the case, said Rep. Austin. In the next few weeks, the bill will go to Senate, and hopefully we have a good update then as well. Hopefully,
Yeah, Arizona's a pretty cool state. They seem to hate those. You can have what, and they got wreckweed. Sounds good.
right, and it's a start, right? It's a start. So hopefully other areas take notes, just like usually it's a domino effect. Start somewhere and then it gradually becomes a thing in more and more places, and then it just can't be ignored. It just really can't if enough people agree and get on board. Hopefully, slowly but surely, things lead into that direction because it's really it just seems like more and more stories about the most horrendous things come out every day. And it's never going to stop, but more and more people need to be aware so that they can take action into being able to get people like that to have punishment to where it can be stopped, or at least, you know, not as many people want to do it because the crimes are so horrendous. I mean, it's sad to say that, but the time that these people do, it definitely stops them in their tracks from doing the horrendous crime. I mean, you steal a car and you go on a car chase. How long are you in prison for? Longer than a child, that's for sure. How many car chases happen? We don't see that very often. So, just saying.
Yeah, well, I mean, like you said, hopefully that domino effect, it just takes that one time, and maybe the big push in Arizona will push other places. I'm sure my state will have a problem with everything because it
Oh,
seems to be going
for sure.
backwards when it comes to
Yeah.
that stuff. But, times things can change. Um, and this is a good update. We're definitely going to keep on top of this.
Yeah, we just got to keep being loud about it and keep talking about it, and hopefully more and more people talk about it. And if you're listening to this, and even if you don't want to share, even if you don't want to put this on your social media anywhere, our episode, maybe in person at a lunch or when you're talking to a friend on the phone, let them know that you don't got to listen to us, but just spread it by word of mouth. Just let your people know what you heard on The Betrayed. They don't
And
have to
we
come listen.
and yeah, you don't have they don't have to come listen. We always provide links to the articles that we talk about down below. So if you're afraid like they don't want to listen to a podcast or just some random people on YouTube, we do provide sources. So if you want to go that route, we're not here to get the podcast out. We're here to get the word out and get things changed. That's the main goal.
Right. And we fact check everything. We don't like to put anything out that's wrong. We don't like to give false information. That's on us if you guys spread false information. So we don't want that. So everything that we talk about is always in the description. And thank you guys. Thank you guys if you are spreading the awareness, because it's definitely stuff that needs to be known by everybody.
Absolutely. And just listening and talking about really does help more than people realize, just getting the conversation started. It's an uncomfortable conversation, and I'm sure Gina runs into this more often since we've gone so full force at this. It makes people uncomfortable, but you can get a long conversation going if you get the right group of people together, because most people hate weirdos.
Yeah. I mean, I met a new friend, so spontaneous and random. It was my Uber driver. He was giving me a ride from Jenna's house to the airport. We sparked conversation, just talking about what we do and what we have done. And he travels. He says his favorite places like Japan and Tokyo, and he goes to all these different places. And I was like, oh, I go to different places too, but it can be for pleasure, but sometimes it's for catching. And he's like, oh, no way. And it sparked up a whole conversation of like how the world is right now. We talked about like our country. We talked about what we're dealing with the pandemic and how people are at home and getting abused every day, potentially more and more than they would if they were going to school, or just stuff like that. And it was really nice to have that conversation with someone who had no idea what I do, doesn't never watched, and also had like a great insight. And was able to tell his own stories from traveling. It was really cool. And there's people out there that would love to have conversations like that and not make it weird. You know, it's not, we need to quit making it like it's a bad thing to talk about.
I can't help myself.
These
I gotta
bad
plug
things.
this. If you want a conversation starter, go to Official Hardcore on Instagram and go get one of his Kill File shirts or Files Don't Reoffend. Half the room will feel very uncomfortable and the other room will love it. It's a great way to get things going. It does make people uncomfortable, but I love those shirts.
We'll link that in the description as well, so it's easy for you to find. But those shirts are definitely the best. You gotta grab yourself one. And we're not sponsored or anything. We love the dude who's behind the shirt.
Oh, and all the money from those shirts actually goes to his 501c3 for missing exploited women and children. So it does actually it's a double good cause. So we'll
yeah, he does
definitely
a
link
lot
it.
of great things. He feeds the homeless, right?
Pretty regular, I think at least once a week or something like
He
that.
takes donations to feed them also.
Yeah, he does. He's a Superman. That guy's
Yeah.
he's something else.
So if you want to donate for him to feed the homeless or for the t-shirts, we're going to link all of that below.
Absolutely.
And I think we'll end it there. Thank you for listening, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Until next time, Banana Cats. Love y'all.
Banana Cats, much love. Peace.